Good morning, Shangam, second grade readers. Today is Wednesday, June 3rd, and we are continuing our journey with Tall Tales. And today I want to show you what we're going to be doing. We're going to be finding the proof. There's 3 different things I want you to look for today as I read the Tall Tale to you, and then you are going to complete the following template. So let me move myself out of the way. It looks like this. Find the proof of the Tall Tale. So on the left-hand side are the elements that we typically find in a tall tale, and on the right, you're going to be telling us how was that element used in the particular story that I'm going to read to you today. So you're going to be looking for that larger-than-life main character. You're looking for the problem to be solved in a funny way, and you're looking for those exaggerated details. Now remember, folk tales tall tales are filled with exaggerations. So I would say listing at least 3 of them would be great, okay? So without further ado, I'm going to disappear and we're going to jump right over to our story today, which is the story of Pecos Bill. There he is. Way back in the days when the West was wild, the bravest, toughest baby north of the Rio Grande was born to pioneer parents. Now this baby's name was William, but everyone called him Baby Bill. Even in the cradle, everyone knew Baby Bill would grow up to be something special. When he was barely toddling, Baby Bill would have played rattles with rattlesnakes and toy soldiers with scorpions if his ma would have let him. When he started to crawl, he'd sneak out of the cabin and wander off to wrestle baby bear cubs. One day, Baby Bill started crying and fussing something terrible. His mom tried everything, but nothing she did calmed him down. Finally, Bill's oldest brother Bobby figured it out. Another family had moved in 50 miles away, and Baby Bill was feeling crowded. Ma and Pop agreed with Baby Bill, so they packed up the family in a covered wagon and headed west toward the sunset. Not long into their journey, the family had to ford the wide, wild Pecos River. The wagon jammed against a rock, and Baby Bill popped out of the back before anyone noticed. Luckily, Baby Bill taught himself how to swim right quick, but the family traveled on and didn't notice he was missing until it was too late. It's from that tricky river that Baby Bill got his new nickname, Pecos Bill. So Pecos Bill crawled out of the river and took off crawling through the Texas sand. He might have crawled clear back to the old cabin, but he crawled smack dab into a coyote. Now this coyote was a mama coyote. She looked at the dirty, naked pink thing crawling at her and wondered if her cubs would like it for supper. But then Pecos Bill sat up and started scratching her behind the ear. "Nice doggy," he said. The mama coyote's heart melted a little. The pink thing was kind of cute after all. She took him home to her den, but instead of eating him for supper, she decided to raise him with her coyote cubs. So Pecos Bill spent the next 17 years running with the coyotes. When they howled at the moon, he howled around with them. When they hunted, he chased prey clear across the prairie with them. He learned how to read scents on the wind and how to stay so still he turned invisible. It was a fine hot day in the middle of the summer, and Pecos Bill was playing tag with some prairie dogs when he saw an unfamiliar sight. A tall creature was coming toward him through the tall grass. Pecos Bill couldn't tell if it had 4 legs or 6. It had been so long since he'd seen a man on a horse, he'd forgotten what one looked like. The cowboy hauled back on the reins and stopped short when he saw Pecos Bill. He was dirty and sunburned and naked as the day he was born, but the cowboy squinted at Pecos Bill, then started crying and carrying on with joy. You see, the cowboy was Bob, Bill's oldest brother, and he recognized Pecos Bill. Bill had grown to look mightily like their mother. She had died of grief 17 years earlier from losing her baby boy. However, Pecos Bill needed more convincing that he'd met his long-lost brother. Problem was, Pecos Bill thought he was a coyote. He just looked at his brother and howled. "If you're a coyote, where's your tail?" argued Bob. Pecos Bill looked over his shoulder and started turning in circles trying to see his tail. At last he said, "Well, I'm beat. Guess I'm a man after all." So Bill followed Bob back to the ranch, where Bob said he'd make him the best cowboy Texas had ever seen. At first, though, Pecos Bill thought it was hard being a man. For one thing, clothes are mighty scratchy if you aren't used to wearing them. And using a knife and a fork and a spoon instead of your hands takes some getting used to. But one thing Pecos Bill did take to right away was horses. It could be they smelled the coyote in him and respected him for it, or maybe they knew he was wilder than them. Whatever it was, there wasn't a horse in the West that Pecos Bill couldn't tame. Pecos Bill was on his way to town to buy himself a new horse when he passed a herd of wild mustangs. The other cowboys yelled that the mustangs were too wild and they'd kick his head in. But Pecos Bill ran up to the wildest horse in the herd and hopped aboard bareback. And whoo-wee did that horse kick and buck up a storm. He bucked so hard he turned somersaults, but Bill stuck onto his back like a burr. Finally exhausted, the horse gave up. He looked over his shoulder at Pecos Bill and gave him a friendly little nip on the knee. Bill knew from that moment they'd be the best of friends. He called his new friend Widowmaker, 'cause no other cowboy could ride him. Pecos Bill was the best cowboy in Texas, and he taught the other cowboys some better ways of doing things. He taught them to tie a loop at the end of a rope and use it to lasso down cows. He taught them to ride herd and keep the cows together in a group. And he even taught them to sing cowboy songs around the campfire at night, singing at the moon like he'd done as a coyote. One summer, Texas was in the middle of the worst drought anyone could remember. The Pecos River ran almost dry, and even the cacti shriveled up and blew away. There was no water for the cows and horses. But Pecos Bill knew what to do. Up in Oklahoma, a huge tornado, black and mighty, was twisting away on the prairie and keeping the rain clouds with it. Pecos Bill galloped Widowmaker up to Oklahoma and found that twister. Pecos Bill took his rope, the longest in Texas, tossed it through the air, and lassoed the twister right out of the sky. He jumped on top and rode that twister all the way back to Texas, jabbing it with his spurs to make it rain as he went. So the drought ended in Texas, and Pecos Bill invented the rodeo. Though today, most cowboys ride horses and bulls in the rodeo, not tornadoes. So I hope you enjoyed today's tall tale. It's kind of silly. There was some humor in there, right? I think that you probably found quite a few parts very humorous. Now you're going to go back and you're going to fill in that chart. Who was the character that was larger than life? What were the exaggerated details, and how was the problem solved in a humorous way, right? How did Pecos Bill stop the drought? Anyway, if you need any help, you know where to find us. Have a fantastic Wednesday, and I'll see you tomorrow.